Welcome to the Champion Within podcast, your go-to spot for unlocking a winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete chasing greatness, a parent cheering from the sidelines, a coach leading the charge, or an educator shaping young minds, this pod party is for you. Hey, if we haven't met before, I'm Kate McCauley, your pod party host, former educator turned mindset mentor. I get to meet people where they are and get them to where they want to go. Expect awesome guest conversations with athletes, some solo chats to level up, and always leave this pod party with quick, powerful strategies to help you and your crew push past limits, embrace challenges, and crush goals both on and off the field. Let's tap into the champion within, because greatness is just a mindset away. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on The Champion Within today. I'm excited to share this guest with you. We have so many things in common, but I also don't know a lot about him. I will tell you that he does know my daughter because she is in his homeroom. This guest of mine, Kevin Pierce, is a teacher. He's a coach. He owns his own company. He has a lot of cool things to share with you. He actually just put a book out into the world that he's going to tell us all about as well. My daughter comes home and tells me some cool things that he's doing, and I ask questions and she rolls her eyes and doesn't give me all of the information sometimes. I get little pieces here and there. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about his athletic journey, his coaching journey. I know he's going to drop some epic wisdom that my coaches, my athletes, definitely my parents of athletes, can share and steal for either yourself or those that you coach or those athletes that live in your house. Kevin, nice to have you here today. I can't wait to steal all of this good information. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I can't wait to get started and chat with you today. I just love what you're doing, and I've been following you, so I'm super excited to be here today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Let's start with you as the athlete. I'm going to tell you a little secret that I don't know if I told you, but I was working with a volleyball team, and one of the assistant coaches happened to say, "Oh, I was a Ridley swimmer." And it was Spirit Week at their school. And the girls were loving the fact that they found a picture of this swimmer when he was at Ridley High School. He was a swimmer. I'm not even sure the year, but they somehow in the deep dive of the internet found I believe either middle school or high school picture, and they dressed like him on Dress Like the Teacher Coach Day. And they were loving it. They were talking about his journey being a coach. He doesn't coach the swim team. He's a volleyball coach now, but I would love to hear a little bit about your journey because I think athletes like to hear that about coaches. Just tell me a little bit about it for you.
I was lucky enough growing up that I played just about every sport. My parents wanted me to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like, so they gave me every opportunity to try everything. When I was younger, I was a soccer player, I was a swimmer, I was a baseball player. Mostly those three sports. I dabbled in some of the other sports, but those three sports were definitely the favorites of mine growing up. I did all the youth stuff, playing soccer. I was a goalie. I didn't like to run so much. So, goalie was the spot for me. I continued to play that all the way through middle school. Baseball was probably my number one favorite sport. I loved baseball. I loved playing Little League. I played down at Ridley Area Little League. And I was decent. I wasn't the best, but I loved it. And it was my passion growing up. I always thought I was going to be the starting second baseman for the Phillies, as a 12-year-old kid. That obviously didn't work out that way. But, that was where I wanted to be. Then I swam. And it's funny, swimming was probably the least favorite of my sports growing up. And that's what I coach today. I had some great coaches along the way, though, that really instilled a love in those sports for me. I learned so much and not even realizing it until I became a coach. But those were my three, major sports growing up that I wouldn't trade for anything.
I love it. So I'm curious, swimming was your least favorite, although I'm sure you enjoyed it. How did you end up as a swim coach if that wasn't one of your top favorite sports?
I was lucky enough to have the greatest coach in my life was my high school swim coach. The impact he had on me was just unbelievable. And I'm so lucky and blessed to, have been coached from him. And I actually consider him one of my best friends in the entire world. We stayed close. My first job out of college was working for a nonprofit that he ran. He's been a part of my life, and the impact that he had on me. I knew as a junior in high school that I wanted to be a coach. I decided the impact that this man had on me was unreal, and I wanted to be able to do the same.
Well, I can tell by the way you're just talking about him that he made an impact on your life. How did he do that? I was just mentioning my teenage daughter. If I say something to her, she will definitely probably roll her eyes, even if other kids are like, oh, that's a great idea. If you say something, or a coach, as her homeroom teacher or her track coach, it could be very similar words worded differently, and it just has a different impact. It lands different. So do you remember a time when maybe the coach said something, or maybe there was a little story that happened and you think, all right, this guy's pretty awesome?
Yeah, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was a nerdy little ninth grade boy, with a bowl cut and glasses and all that stuff. But he noticed the way that I worked in the pool, and he noticed my work ethic. And he pulled me out of the pool the one day, and he just told me, he said, Kev, I see what you can be. And that was just so powerful. And he's like, you have the potential to be a leader. You have the potential to have people gravitate to you and want to be led by you. And as soon as I heard that, I would have swam through a brick wall for this guy.
Wow, yeah.
He just saw that in me, but he took the time to tell me that. That changed the trajectory of my life, actually. And I've told him this. We've had this conversation that he changed my life that day, because it gave me something to work for, and it gave me someone other than my parents, like you said, to work for and want to make proud. It was awesome. And I remember that like it's yesterday, and I try to take that moment as much as I can. And I try to replicate that, for my athletes and my students, because like you said, they just might need to hear it from somebody. When I heard that from him, it changed my life.
That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. There's so many things there that I love about it. First, when he said, I see what you can be, I feel like we should all steal that. If you are a coach, a teacher, I see what you can be. How powerful.
Yeah.
And when you said that he pulled you out and he told you, it might seem simple, but it's huge to actually let someone know that you see something within them and that they should be aware of it, because sometimes we don't see it ourselves. Thank goodness. What's the coach's name? I love to give shout.
Yep. His name's Kurt Slen. He was the first swim coach ever here at Ridley.
Okay.
And he did it for 20 years, and he was awesome. I started coaching with him. I was an assistant coach. Actually, during college, I started coaching at Ridley with him. This is actually my 20th year starting at Ridley coaching.
Wow.
So I started in 2004 as an assistant with him, and I got to work side by side with him for 10 years, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's got to be a full circle moment for him too.
Absolutely. He retired. We had a conversation. I actually left Ridley and went and coached at Cabrini University for a couple of years. When he was getting ready to retire at Ridley, he called me and he said, listen, he said, you don't have to do this, but if I'm going to retire and hand this off to someone, he said, there's no one in the world I'd rather hand this off to. And
wow.
I turned in my resignation the next day at Cabrini. And, I was lucky enough to come back here, and I've been here now back as the head coach here for, 10 years.
Start that conversation by saying, I see what you can be.
He did, he said, and he's always said this, and he's totally wrong, but he always told me that I was a much better coach, or, could be a much better coach than he ever was. I don't believe that, but that's what he did. And he just made you feel a certain way. He still does. Whenever I need something, I'm able to pick up the phone and call him. We might not talk for weeks or months at a time. And I pick up the phone and, we talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours about everything. And, it's nice to have that person.
It really is. Thank goodness for him. Thank goodness that he saw that. Thank goodness he told you. It's hard sometimes when you're a coach. I've been a coach, and there are days where you're like, oh, there's so many things going on. But then when you see those moments and that spark in a kid, take a second and tell them, because like you said, it changed your whole life. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to him as well for doing that, because to some it may seem little, but it's really huge, because now the ripple effects of you being able to coach and all of the different athletes that you have impacted. I want to move along to that a little bit now that you took over in your coaching and you also have your leadership program. Tell me a little bit first about when you're coaching. I actually saw something that you posted and I wanted to ask about it. We had something, and I should tell everyone that I live in the same school district that Kevin teaches in. As I mentioned, my daughter goes to school there. He's the homeroom teacher. And I saw that there was a National Honor Society program that they were honoring I guess it's the seniors now this year. My daughter's a junior. So I was just seeing it pop up on social media. You said something about you get to give black caps out, the swim caps, and you described it a little bit. And I will admit, I was moving fast that day, so I didn't dive deep. I'm not sure if you gave all of the details. Could you tell us a little bit about that special recognition? It seems kind of cool, and I wanted to know more about it.
Yes, it's important to me that my athletes are well-rounded, right? And not everybody's going to be a superstar in the pool or on the field or anything like that. But I want them all to feel equal, and I want them to feel like they play a role, which they do. We started a couple years ago, and again, every great idea that I have, just like everybody else, I've stolen from somewhere and made it my own. But the University of Virginia's swim team did something similar, but theirs was more geared towards people who made the Olympic trial qualifying times, things like that. But I wanted to take it a step further, and now we offer it. So it's a black cap. You know, our school colors are green and white. So it's a black cap, so it stands out a little bit with silver. And they get it for different criteria. One is making the National Honor Society. It will, give the kids who maybe aren't the best swimmers in the world that recognition for being great students. And they're able to wear that cap proudly through the season. We give it to kids who are super involved in the community. If they do community service, and we kind of keep track, they know to shoot me an email. And if they lead the team in community service, they get a black cap. We'll give that out for the kids from last season. They'll get that the first day of practice. Then we do it with qualifying times. If a kid makes the state meet, or a district cut or something like that, then we have that component too. Growing up as an athlete, I was never the greatest. I wasn't an all-state or an all-American or anything like that. So I look for ways to make sure everybody feels valued, everybody feels seen, and adding that community service and that academic part, I think does a good job. And, it gives everybody a chance to be recognized in that way.
Dare I say that it's the I see you.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
And I didn't know that it was for all those other things. I just, when I saw the post, I said, oh, I guess this is just for the National Honor Society kids. I'm glad that I asked. I love the community service piece and, hitting the times and the different pieces of that. That's a great idea. Coaches often look for ways to acknowledge and see their athletes. And that's a very cool way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's something that the other athletes can try to earn.
Absolutely. It gives everybody a chance. And that's important to me.
It does. And of course, we want to win. When I'm doing the mindset work, sometimes people think it's let's hold hands and be all woo-woo. And to a degree, we do some of the, not hold hands and get super woo-woo, but we do some of these things where people are thinking, oh, I'm not so sure about this until it works. And then they're like, whoa, where have you been all my life? But we want to win. You have to push that, of course, but there's other parts of sport. That student athlete, there's a reason why student is first. My mother's also a teacher, so my brothers and I were always reminded of that student athlete part. Student comes first. I love that it's for the National Honor Society and the community service because you gain so many skills as an athlete. Being able to do those things is pretty awesome. Thank you for doing that. It's pretty cool. I'm glad I found out the other details because I just thought it was National Honor Society. And I love that it really just goes with I see you too.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the company that you started related to leadership and exactly who you get to serve.
Yes, I've taken in the last couple of years a deep dive into leadership. I just see leadership as such an important component of just making the community a better place. I live and work in the same community. I want to make sure that people understand that leadership isn't necessarily something that you're born with. Certain kids are prone to more leadership capabilities than others, I think. But I think if they are taught how to be a leader, then, everybody's on an equal footing, and you can really get some of these kids to come out of their shell and be the leader that you're looking for your team, for your community, for your school. I just think that we don't spend as a society enough time teaching that to kids. I think the younger you can start, the better off you are. So, my 7-year-old, I have a 7-year-old daughter at home who is just the best, but we talk about leadership stuff all the time. And my 12-year-old son, he has to listen to dad, get up on his soapbox and all that stuff sometimes, but he's starting to get it. And the cool thing is seeing him start to get it. He spent some time with me over the summer at a camp that we did and everything. And it's really starting to click for him. He's playing 7th grade soccer right now. And I'm starting to see him be a little more vocal and know how to communicate. And I think that's a big one. One of the biggest leadership skills you can have is communication. With all these kids in their faces buried in their iPads and, video games and stuff like that, I think it's these kids just don't know how to communicate right now. Teaching that leadership skill is humongous. And I think seeing that in my own 2 kids getting better at that gives me a lot of hope for being able to teach other kids. And that's why I started this. It's called the Leadership Launchpad. And I'm just trying to run workshops. I'm trying to run camps, things like that for middle school to high school age kids, just to get the basics of leadership down and try to figure out what their true north is. And that's something that I think is important, to figure out what is important to them and then how to go about leading the way to get to where they want to be with that. So I'm excited. I've got a few things lined up, and it's really starting to come together. I want to leave a legacy of making people better and helping people and making my community a better place. We're starting here, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love this so much. And hey there, before we dive back into the pod party, how about we sneak out for a quick break? Feeling the weight of the daily grind? Our workshops and staff development programs are your backstage pass to success. We're here to arm you and your leadership squad with the tools to ace those goals, tame stress, and foster a winning culture. Forget the boring seminars. Our workshops are all about real connections and real results. Whether it's virtual or in person, we're here to elevate your success. After the show, visit shop.danunow.com to learn more and set up a free call to chat. We tailor our programs to fit your needs and goals. Let's get back to the show. Grab your virtual goodie bags so you can fill them up with all of the mindset magic. You had mentioned that I stopped in the summer with your camp. I do want to say, before we even talk about that work, because there's a lot of powerful things you're doing there. When you mentioned your son and daughter, I know I've mentioned a couple of times, my daughter's not really listening. I do got to say, even though they may roll their eyes and sometimes say like, I don't know, and someone else says it, and I'm like, I've been saying the same thing, they are getting it.
Oh, absolutely.
And, when you're saying stuff to your son and your daughter and my kids, I joke all the time. If I learn something new, if I'm going through a certification or I'm going to try something new in a workshop, I learn a really cool thing about the brain. I experiment with them first. I say, let me see how this works with you. They're like, great, she's learning something new. Yep. But they are taking it in. And I do see little bits and pieces of it. I hear them say things that are very close to the things I'm saying, even if at times when I directly say it, they were rolling their eyes. And I noticed that about your son when I got to come in just for a small piece of what you were doing. I ran a visualization and I noticed a couple of things. You did a really good job of putting on the leadership role where you were in charge of all of the camp. I think that characteristic of yours really goes to the fact that you are a teacher and you can just say, he's not my son right now, even though he is, and you can step out of that role and step into the educator role. That was impressive. I actually wasn't sure who your son was at first when I came in there. That's hard to do. And being a coach myself, I've coached my children and doing some of this work. It is hard sometimes to say, okay, I'm not your mom right now, or I'm not your dad. I'm in this role. So that was impressive when I was in there, for one. And I really loved how all of those kids and your son were leaning into learning those leadership tools that you were giving. And when I was in there, it was really cool how you were participating, doing the visualization, because you got to walk the walk. You can't just say, hey, this is a great idea. So when your kids are seeing you do that and even my kids rolling their eyes at me, they see us doing these things. I think it's really powerful. Your kids are really still cool. They're 7 and 12, and my kids are although I will say my oldest son now is 18, and he directly will tell me some things where I'm like, wow, okay, he does think this is a good idea.
Sure.
But my other two are at the 14, 16, where they're like, not so much for you,
Right.
Mom, but which is developmentally appropriate. But anyway, I think they are absorbing it, like you said, and it was impressive to see your son in that.
Thank you. Yeah. And being a dad and being a husband is the most important job, that I'm ever going to have. So, it's important to me. And, if we talk again in 2 years when my son's a freshman and we're in the middle of swim season and we might be screaming and yelling at each other at the dinner table, I don't know how that's going to go, but the good thing is I know that we have the relationship that will get us through that, so we'll see.
Definitely. You can always call, the coach and say, I'm going to need some advice on this one.
Right.
Speaking of that you brought that up, I happened to see a post that, was your dad a coach? Did he coach you?
He did. So my dad was one of my baseball coaches growing up, and he was awesome. He was not hard on me. He just wanted to see me enjoy myself. He wanted to see me do well. He was the kind of coach where you respected him enough that he gave you the leeway to make the mistakes and learn from them. But when he needed to get on you, he would. My dad, for the last, 25 years or so now, he works with the challenger sports. Okay. So he works with kids with mental and physical handicaps. He has had, just as much of an impact as Kurt has had, seeing my dad take that time with those kids. And it's just been unbelievable to see the lives that he's changing. He's given these kids a chance to get out and play sports that they wouldn't have. He runs baseball, basketball, bowling, swimming. It's just unbelievable to see and talk about legacy, the legacy that he's left. I could not be prouder to be Phil Pierce's son because he has changed lives tenfold. So the impact.
Seen Kurt and Phil, yep. By the time your son is on the swim team in the high school, even if he's pulling some of the stuff that is developmentally appropriate that my kids are doing, you definitely have some people that you can look to and say, okay, how did they manage this? And you'll be great. And so will they. And, it's a learning curve for all of us. We figure it out as we go. There'll be plenty of people who can be there to support. I think that's pretty cool too, to have all of those different influences. My dad also was a coach. He coached me. My toughest and probably best coach. So I know a lot of the things I do now is because of his influence as a coach. Yep. And especially coaching my own kids. When he coached us, I would think like, how did you do this? And then I would think, this is what he did. Hopefully someday we'll be sitting on the sidelines and saying like, oh, look at that. They learned that from us. We'll circle again. Tell me, if somebody wanted to come to one of your workshops, or if you were running a workshop, because I know once people hear some of these things that you're doing and they want to say, hey, can you run a workshop for us? Or where do I go to get in one of these workshops? How do they do that?
Sure. So they can visit my website. I have a website. It's just coachkevinpierce.com. And there's a link to email me and everything on there. So I am working with the local soccer team in a couple months to actually do a talk for their coaches. I'm getting into, some of that stuff too. To help them develop leaders on their teams and things like that.
I absolutely love that. So anyone who's listening right now, you need to bring Kevin in to do that, because the coaches need to be buying into this leadership work, and you need to be doing that because, like we were saying earlier, you need to walk the walk. You can't go say to your athletes, I want you to do this and be a leader, and not do it yourself. I can't tell you how many times where I'm working with a team or different people and they say, yeah, we're all in. And then later I'm like, no, you're not. And this is why it's not working. And I've had to have tough conversations because they get frustrated with the team that they're not doing the thing. Well, neither are you. I'm glad to hear that the soccer team and coaches actually are doing that. And then, of course, the team. Would they call you and say, this is what's going on with our team? Or is it a set program that you already do?
No, I can tailor it to whatever a coach is looking for, and just to be able to go in and hear another voice. We talked about that earlier. And I know I'm still coaching myself how you get wrapped up in the season, and there's sometimes things fall through the cracks. And I think leadership is definitely one of them, especially at the youth level where you're worrying about everything else, and you just don't have that time to really teach those leadership skills as much as you might want to be able to go in and work with these kids and give them a fresh voice, a new voice, and give them some of those skills that a coach who is volunteering their time and not getting paid to do some of that stuff for them has really become something that I'm super excited about. So
yeah, that's exciting.
yeah.
I love that. We'll definitely, everyone who's listening right now, have that in the show notes so you can click on that and make sure that you get that set up for your team, because it is really valuable. I will say that one of the campers from your summer program, he is a track runner. And I noticed when he was at the track, some of the things he was doing and saying was definitely true leadership qualities, cheering on some of the other athletes. And he's younger. I believe he's a 10th grader maybe right now. And I actually knew him as a younger kid. He was a football player locally, kind of quiet. And when I saw him doing these things, I couldn't help but think, thank goodness he was in that leadership program this summer, because it was pretty clear that he was showing up as a leader this year. I think that just one or two little things that some kid in this leadership camp could take or workshop could take can really be life-changing for an athlete.
Absolutely. And just like you said, just seeing someone, right, and telling them, you see this in them could just go a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I do also want to talk about your book. I've been seeing a lot of different posts on that. It's really cool. And you're out on a book tour reading to everyone. I love it. Tell everyone, what is the name of the book? Let's start there.
Of course. I wrote a children's book, and it's called Leo the Lion's Great Adventure. It's a funny story. I lay in bed with my daughter at night, the 7-year-old that we were talking about, and I just tell her stories. And one night she's like, Dad, you should write that down and write a book. I just said, you know what? Let's do it. So it was cool. I was able to involve her in the process, and we were able to do it. It is out on Amazon right now, and it's been about a month and a half that it's been out, and we've sold over 1,200 copies already.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And to tie back into the leadership stuff, it definitely is a book that helps younger kids with leadership lessons. I told you at the beginning that, I want these kids to learn it from a young age. My goal is to continue. I'm working with an editor and everything and a publishing house, and they want to make it a series, and we're going to turn it into a little leadership lessons for younger kids, age kindergarten through 3rd grade. And each book is going to have a leadership lesson that goes with it. We're going to keep our fingers crossed that I'm able to continue to do this, because it's been such a cool experience.
I love that for you. And as a mindset coach, we're not going to keep our fingers crossed. We're going to say, I'm going to continue with this because it is a great success and children need it.
Absolutely.
I got to shift that for you. You and I spoke just a little bit in the summer. It wasn't even out yet. You were talking a little bit about the book. And I said, you need to be out there telling people about this because it sounds amazing. So congratulations on that. And the posts I've seen about it with you reading, you really do seem to be having a great time, which is important too. And the kids who are getting to experience it, your daughter probably is loving that too.
Yeah, so I got to go to her school the other day.
Very cool.
And she just was, grinning ear to ear, and she walked in and told everybody, "There's my dad." And so it was just the coolest experience. It really
very
was.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very
and if
cool.
you asked me a couple years ago if I'd be reading to elementary school classes and doing this, I would have told you were nuts. But this kind of just fell into my lap, and we're going to run with it because it is just so cool to be able to get through to these guys. And especially at this young age, I absolutely love it.
That's great. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Yeah. That's really how things play out. Sometimes we don't realize it at the time. I'm glad you listened to your daughter. Just like I see something in you. Hey, I see this book. Let's do it. That point right there when someone says to you, I see something, or this sounds like a cool book, Dad. Someone who's listening right now, maybe it's not a swim coach saying it to you, or maybe somebody didn't say, you should write that book. But if somebody is saying something to you, as my listeners right now, you need to listen, because if you don't, you could be missing something really cool and fun. You got to take action. Right. The worst thing that happens is nothing. The best thing that happens is you're out doing something really cool. You're at a school reading books, you're teaching leadership, you're running workshops, you're coaching. If you even the slightest bit are thinking, maybe I want to do that, whatever it is, if it's an athlete, if it's a parent, whatever you're thinking of right now, do the thing. Listen to the people that see that in you, because most people who tell you those things, they're not just saying it just to make you feel good. Like they're being honest with you. They see something in you and they're legit keeping it real. If somebody is saying something to you, it's not just like, oh, we want to make you feel good. They see something.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss if we don't talk about my wife right now too.
Yeah, please do.
She's the other one. And she's been so supportive of my coaching journey. It's not easy being a coach's wife.
You're right.
Really, or a coach's husband. There's been times during swim season the last 20 years that she's been a single parent. She's in charge of everything. And she has allowed me to follow my passion and allowed me to follow my dreams. And she's been so supportive, the entire time. She's definitely, in that list of people that see me and see what I can be. If I don't have those people in my life, I'd be sitting on the couch, eating potato chips or something, So having those people has just been awesome.
Yeah. Good thing you mentioned her, because we don't want you getting in trouble.
No.
First one on the red carpet.
That's
Definitely.
Right.
And you're right. When you do something, whether it's a career change, it's a book, it's coaching, if you are married or you have a significant other in your life, a partner of some sort, they do have to make a decision there. Am I going to support this person? Because especially if it's a big change or something new, you're out doing the book thing, you're coaching, that's a lot of hours. To have someone like your wife in your life is really great, because not everyone can do that. I'm on both sides of the coin there. When I was a coach, my kids were very little, infants, and I still coached. And my husband was like, yeah, keep doing it. You love, coaching. And then now when I'm not coaching anymore, and he is in the coaching arena and helping with youth sports a lot, I do the solo parent thing, and I get frustrated sometimes. I'm like, oh, he's down at the field all day, all night last night. It's tough. It's stressful, but then you step back and you see the good things, a homecoming or a little kid at the Acme runs up and says like, hey, Coach Dan. I'm like, okay,
Makes it
wasn't that bad that I had to drive everyone everywhere, but it is stressful. And then you do have the people, speaking of, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, that have things to say. Not everyone likes you as a coach. Like, I'm not saying you specifically, but not everyone likes the coach. They might be saying some things. That's tough on the wife or the husband sometimes. I'm sure she's like, hey, they sometimes wear a shirt that'll say like coach's wife. It just goes up if you're talking trash. It's a role that I'm sure she plays well. I don't know her personally, but I'm sure, as you mentioned, she is very supportive. So I'm glad you gave her a shout out as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Same with the business too. That's same thing goes. I feel like.
And even to add to that, teaching, it was not my first career. So I worked for a nonprofit out of college. And then I was the aquatic director at the local Y. I ran the swim lessons and the lifeguards and stuff there. I just woke up one morning and realized this isn't what I wanted to be doing. So I went back, got my teaching degree. There was a good half a year where I had to student teach and I didn't get paid a penny. And, she was so supportive during that, and we figured it out together. And, I'm where I should be. And we had touched on that earlier. I'm where I should be. This is what I should be doing. And it took me a while to get there. I wouldn't have gotten there if she wasn't so supportive and so good with everything.
You need those people in your life, because if not, like you said, maybe you'd be sitting on the couch, like eating chips or doing something. So thank goodness for her. I do want to move into looking at coaching. I want you to give a little tip or something that you would say to any coach right now who's listening, thinking, okay, this sounds great. Coach Kevin, is doing his thing. He's got the leadership thing. He's got the book. He's got the supportive wife. He's got all the things. Sounds great for him, but I'm a hot mess over here because maybe I'm just getting started as a coach, or maybe I have a group of athletes that are testing my patience, because we have those years. What would you say to that coach, or maybe it's a staff, a whole group of them? Do you have any advice that you would give them that they?
Yeah, I think we hear a lot nowadays that kids have changed. I don't believe that, right? I think kids are still kids. I think kids want to be held accountable. They want to work hard. They want to, please people. I think us as a society, us as adults have changed. We don't really hold those kids to the standard that they should be held to. So my advice would be is hold these kids to be accountable. Hold them to be the person that you think they can be, you see that they can be. Right. And if you can do that, then you are going to service them much longer than just being their coach, whether it's for 4 years as a high school coach or, 2 years as a youth coach. That's going to service them their entire life. I think, if you can make that realization as quickly as you can that, kids want to work hard, they want to be held accountable. They might not act like it at the beginning, but I think deep down inside, with as much as I see kids and I work with kids, they want to be held accountable and they want someone in their life to do that, because they might not get that at home, or they might not get that, at every single classroom in the building or anything like that. So the more you can do that, the more they're going to respect you and they're going to want to work for you. And I touched on earlier about swimming through a brick wall for my coach. That's what you want. You want those kids to, defend you. You want those kids to want to be part of your program and get others to be part of your program. And I think holding them accountable, holding them to that high standard will get you there quicker than not doing that.
I love that answer. And it really aligns with who I was as an educator for 20 years, who I was as a coach when I was coaching teams or my children in the youth level. I think that it's important to tell people who aren't educators. Sometimes if you have a background in education, you might know some of these things a little differently when you're seeing kids sit there. Coaches are really teachers too. You should know that kids, their nervous system is out of whack, and they may not be telling you it's chaotic if they don't have the rules and a consequence. They may be really pissed and react in a way that is upset, angry if you give them a consequence. I always would say for every action, there's a reaction and a consequence. Yeah. That's good, bad, ugly, everything in between. You do need to hold them accountable, like you just said. And maybe they're not happy in the moment, but they will, even if they don't come back to you, they will be happy at some point. You might not hear about it. But
and I did just recently, and it's funny you said that, I did have somebody come back.
Tell us, what happened?
Absolutely. So there was a kid that we're probably talking 7-8 years ago that we butted heads. I expected him to do things that he wasn't doing. And we got into it a little bit, and I was hard on him. I was, chewing him out, when he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, and he was making bad decisions. And I think we left when he graduated high school, not necessarily on the best of terms. When he came back, I saw him. It was just this past summer. We were out at a adult establishment eating dinner and hanging out, and I ran into him, and he just came up to me and he said, you probably think I don't like you. And I said, well, you probably think I don't like you. And we had that conversation, and it was so great to have, because he told me how much he learned from my program and how he still uses it today. I was just blown away. And it validated my thoughts. It validated the way I do things. And just to hear that, now we're friends on Facebook and Instagram, and he's liking stuff, and I'm able to message him and congratulate him on the things going on in his life. So someone who at the time I didn't think I reached or got through to, I did. And I had no idea until he told me, which was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome to actually hear that from an athlete or a student, because we overthink things when we give that concept. Was I too tough on the kid? Maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe I should have done it differently. Sometimes it's for years. You start to beat yourself up and think, I don't know if I went in too hard, but you're thinking like, this kid needed that. So when you can hear that or see that, if you see success, I absolutely love if you see something somewhere for a kid, maybe it's on social media or an article or something, and you say, oh, thank God they were successful, because there was a point where I was a little worried what was going to happen there. It's great to have that full circle moment. It's funny when you were saying that. I had an athlete when I was coaching basketball, and her home life was not great. And at this time, it was middle school basketball, and it was all of our elementary schools in the district I worked at. They would be shipped over to my school because we didn't have a middle school. So they basically bussed all of the kids over. Some kids were missing the bus. It was total craziness. It was a battle in itself to get them to me for practice and make sure that we had our uniforms, that we had our sneakers, we got on the bus. And if they did anything in their building, I couldn't get a hold of them. I loved when I was in the middle school and I could go down to their math class and say, are you kidding me that you just did that? But in this situation, I didn't have that rapport every day because I was in a different building. So they call me and they say, Alyssa stole 5 apple juices today from the lunch line. She's not supposed to do that. They were so furious with her. And, I said, okay, I'm going to deal with her. Alyssa's home life wasn't great. I did say to the cafeteria people, let me put some money on the account. Don't tell her. She's clearly thirsty. I took that line, which they got a little pissed at me, but I'm like, she's stealing apple juice, not the computers. But anyway, that's a different story. But when she got there, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm going in and I felt bad. I get that you're thirsty. We need to figure out a different plan. And she had different moments throughout those 2 seasons in middle school with me where it was tough. And she was an average to good player. I don't even think, I'm thinking back, she didn't play in high school, but she was an okay kid in high school, didn't get in trouble. I saw her somewhere with her kids and family, probably 5-6 years ago now. And she said to me, remember when I stole the apple juice? I never stole something ever again. I was like, thank God. I was so pissed at you, but also like, what the hell? I'll give you apple juice, So when you have those moments, it's like, oh, thank goodness. I was feeling bad about it because I'm like, she's so thirsty, but she needed a consequence. It's nice when you're able to see it. But those coaches who are listening right now, when I get to work with people who question, am I doing the right thing? You are doing the right thing. Even if you don't have those moments like Kevin and I are talking about, you might not see it all of the time. Just know you are doing the right thing. Because if you don't do the right thing, think what happens. And we don't want to do that. We would be, if your purpose is to be a coach and educate and teach kids through sport, through teaching, your purpose is not to let them be a hot mess. So.
Yep. Yeah. And I know this sounds cliche but we as coaches, we as teachers, we lose sleep over other people's kids, and it's just thinking about, did I handle this situation right? Did I handle that situation right? You second guess yourself. But if you go with your gut and you're doing what's best for the kid, you're doing the right thing. You
Absolutely.
just do right by the kid, do right by your convictions and what you believe, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. If you're wondering right now, am I a good teacher? Because I have teachers that listen to, am I a good coach? Am I a good parent? Not that I want you to lose sleep, but if you're losing sleep, if you're laying there thinking, did I do the right thing? You're a good teacher. You're a good parent. You're a good coach, even if you make a mistake. And someone had mentioned a couple episodes ago, and I stole it from them, just like you said, we steal stuff. That's what the best teachers do. What you do next matters most. So if you make a mistake, you can own it and then say, listen, maybe I did come in a little too hard yesterday. Let's figure out what we're going to do. You can always figure out something. Everything's figured out.
And you just said something that, admit your mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. You're not perfect. You don't pretend to be perfect because those kids don't need perfect. They need someone who's real. They need someone who, is showing them that it's okay to admit their mistakes and okay to say, okay, I was wrong, and apologize. One of the hardest things for me at the beginning of my coaching career was to be able to apologize when I was wrong, because it was, I don't know if it was an ego thing. I don't know if it was I want to show that I'm a right thing, but it took me a good couple years to be able to say, you know what, I didn't handle this right. I'm wrong and I'm sorry. But once you do that and you show kids that relationship gets so much tighter and so much stronger because you're being real with them. You're not just being fake. You're not, not admitting that you did something wrong. So once you can do that and the kids see that, then again, they're swimming through that brick wall for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a sign of a true leader to be able to admit that.
Yep.
And then you're teaching them again, this is what you do when you make a mistake, and you got to own it. And then what you do next. Absolutely. I think that's really important. And it also shows you're human, because a lot of times our athletes, the parents, like I was saying in the beginning, well, it's all great. He has all these great things. There's going to be days when it's not great and things don't, look like sunshine and rainbows. Someone actually sent me a text message who is very involved with sports, coaches, volunteers, is a nurse too. She's got 3 kids, very busy. She sent me a text message. She was feeling guilty. Yesterday, she sent this text message. She was feeling guilty that she didn't get involved enough with something else happening during the weekend that she thought I did so much more than her. She said, you inspire me. You do all these things. Thank you so much for, picking up the slack. And I wrote back, she's like, one of these days I'm going to have everything together. And I said, just so you know, I do not have everything together. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm a hot mess most days. And you see the final project, to the finished project, whatever you want to call it. and I'm happy to help. You spent the whole day at a football field and then coaching cheer, and then your son had a baseball game. I had a day where I wasn't as busy, so I volunteered to do the part where I was setting things up. So, and she wrote back, thank goodness you wrote, I don't have everything together. And I actually replied with, I don't plan to ever have everything together.
Right.
I don't, you know what? And anyone who tells me I have everything together, I run from them. There's a red flag. Like, you're lying. But anyway, so I always ask my guests, we're going to move on. I could go on and on. We could talk about so many different things with leadership.
Sure.
I may have to have you back on because I think there's a lot of touch points that we could go to and say the kids could do this, that, and the other thing. So thank you for sharing all of that. But I'm going to move to my last question. This is one I ask everyone. If you had the opportunity to swap lives with anyone, dead or alive, for just 1 week, because we don't want to lose you forever, who would you choose and why?
That's a great question. I would have to go with John Wooden, the former UCLA basketball coach. I love his books. I've read all his books. I have a copy of the Pyramid of Success in my classroom. I have them in every office that I've ever had. I'm sitting in my pool office right now. It's right to my right here. And just not because he won 10 NCAA titles in 12 years, but the relationships that he built and the way that former players talked about him. I've seen interviews with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who, they butted heads so much at the beginning, and to watch, videos of him when John Wooden was 90 years old and Kareem standing next to him and holding him and, helping him stand up and things like that. Like, that's what I want. That's what I want from my former athletes and students and things like that. I want to have that lifelong relationship. And I think Coach Wooden was just so good at it. And the leadership stuff, I base a lot of what I do off of his leadership skills and his leadership teaching. So just to be in that body for a week and to be able to think like he thought and see what he saw would be unbelievable.
Yeah, that would definitely be an epic week.
Yeah.
You would be just writing it all down.
And I knew nothing about the sport of basketball. I played one season. My dad was actually my coach, and he sat me on the bench most of the season. I was so bad at basketball. But I remember being on a breakaway, and I didn't know how to dribble well, and I ended up dribbling the ball over my head and, all that stuff. But it wouldn't be for the basketball stuff. Definitely the leadership stuff.
Too fun. Well, either way, you would see a lot of cool basketball things too, just so you know. I love basketball, so you would definitely see some cool basketball things. But the leadership and just the wisdom that you would just absorb during that week, it would be pretty legendary indeed.
Absolutely.
So, great choice. Do you want to drop all of those links or the best place, Instagram, Facebook,
Sure.
anywhere? Where is the best place? Or maybe it is your website that if people want to connect with you, I follow you on TikTok and different places. Where can they follow you and connect?
Instagram is at Coach Kevin Pierce. That's my personal one. And then I have the Leadership Launchpad. So that's at the Leadership_Launchpad. I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. TikTok, you can just search Leadership Launchpad and that'll come up. Those are the two big ones. And then Facebook, if you just search Kevin Pierce, I'm on there. And then if you want to just search on Facebook, Leo the Lion, that'll come up with all the stuff with the book. And, like I said, we're going to continue that and make it into a series. So, you can follow along with all the book stuff and go from there.
I love how you shifted that. We're going to continue that, and we're fingers crossed.
See, I'm a good student. I listen.
You are a good student. So, well, thank you so much for being the guest here today. I'm excited to see all of the amazing things that are happening for you now and what will be coming in the future for you with that book series, the leadership programs. Not only will your current athletes absorb that and gain from it, but the ripple effects that it will have in this world is going to be pretty cool to see. And I do think that there are going to be some people who will be there saying, I'll hold you up, that John Wooden situation. And they're going to be saying, he saw me. I think that we can say manifesting or whatever, but it is really already happening. I see it, I'm watching it, and I'm excited to continue to see it unfold. So thanks for
that means the world. Thank you. I really appreciate everything you're doing too. It's been fun, working with you, and I look forward to continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, thank everyone for joining us on The Champion Within. Make sure you go down to those show notes, click the links. If you have not had Kevin come and speak to your team, first, you definitely need to have him talk with those coaches and your athletes. And if you have an elementary school, if you're a teacher, if you're a principal, You need Leo the Lion to be coming into your school so your students can hear this. It is just an experience that you're going to want your students to get into their brains early. The earlier you can tell a little kid about leadership, the better they will be as they get into middle school and high school and adulthood. So do that for them. And it's just fun too. You should reach out to him. Click the links in the show notes to connect. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Whether you are going to coach, teach, cheer from the stands, or hit the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show because we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and some sanity in our busy lives. Go unleash that champion within you, one step at a time. I'm rooting for you always.